are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Monday, December 18th. We got a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. Sorry, my mic was falling over. So we'll start off by talking about the Bills and their blowout win against the Dallas Cowboys, winning 31-10. So we'll get into that. Then in the second part of the show, we'll get into talking about the Ravens and their playoff clinching win over the Jacksonville Jaguars last night. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns. I know we've been getting a lot of, well, not a lot, but some comments on the Browns because I've talked about them, a lot these past couple of weeks. And their comeback win against the Bears. So we'll get into that. And then we'll preview tonight's game, which is a pretty big game for both teams. We'll preview that between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks. So with that, let's get right into the first part of the show here. So yesterday, the Bills and the Cowboys went at it in Buffalo. I did take the Bills in this game. Cowboys were actually the underdog in this game, and which was a little fishy. So I was like, all right, I'll take the Bills, so we'll see what happens. But, the Cowboys are coming in. They looked like, they were the better team coming into this game. But they looked like a very different team coming out of this game. 31-10. I mean, they really just could not get anything going offensively. I mean, Dak Prescott, who was playing at an MVP-type level coming into this game, he was not that yesterday. The Bills' defense put a lot of pressure on him. He got sacked a couple times yesterday. The Cowboys just really could not get anything going offensively. They couldn't run the football. But it was the complete opposite for the Bills. I mean, they had their way with the Cowboys' defense. James Cook had his way with the Cowboys' defense, to be more specific. He had an unbelievable game yesterday. So he had 179 rushing yards for the game, with a touchdown on 25 carries. Also had 2 receptions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen only passed the ball 15 times. He went 7 of 15, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Those were his stats for the game. They just relied on James Cook the whole way. The Bills as a team had 266 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen had 1. Latavius Murray had 1. Stephon Diggs was their leading receiver. He had 4 receptions for 48 yards. But that's one of those situations where it's like, you have something working, just keep doing it. And that's what the Bills did. They just kept running the football, and the Cowboys' defense just had no answers for James Cook. And then for Dak Prescott, he went 21-34 for 134 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. They ran the ball for 89 yards in total. Tony Pollard had 52 yards rushing. CeeDee Lamb actually had a rushing touchdown in this game. He was also the leading receiver, 7 for 53. But that was a big win for the Bills because, Now on Saturday, you got the Chargers without Justin Herbert, so they should win that game. Then you got the Patriots at home. You should win that game. And then it could come down to that last week of the season for the AFC East between them and Miami. So we'll see. But Miami has to lose one of their next one of their next 2 games to make that possible, and the Bills have to win out. And Miami's got the Cowboys, and they got the Ravens in Baltimore. So it's very possible we could see the AFC East coming down to that last game. But, this was bad for the Cowboys. Defensively, I know I talked about this on one of the previous shows, but, a couple weeks ago against Seattle, giving up all those points, you got to be concerned there. And in this game, yeah, it kind of reared its ugly head once again with the Cowboys and their performance. And watching, a little bit of, some TV beforehand, people talking about the Cowboys just not being mentally tough for these games on the road. They get punched in the mouth, and they have no answer for it. And that's kind of what's happening. And you saw that in the 49ers game early on in the season, and you're seeing that now. And now they go play Miami next week, which is a tough game for both teams. And Miami's coming off of that win against the Jets, that shutout win against the Jets, even without Tyreek Hill. This is why people don't really take the Cowboys seriously. Now, I think the Cowboys are still a good team, but this is why you can't look at them as, maybe being a Super Bowl contender because of losses like this. Now, anything is possible. We've seen this year, any team can be beat. So, this loss is not going to define the Cowboys season. Obviously, there's more games to be played, but this is why people don't take them seriously, because they lose games like this, and that's why no one looks at them as a team that's going to take it to the next level. I think this game was very telling for both teams here. The Bills are getting right on offense, and the Cowboys, they're a different. I shouldn't say they're not a good road team, but they're a different team playing on the road, as opposed to at home. They're averaging over 30 points at home, and I think because I think on Instagram, and then they're averaging like 21 points on the road. Yeah, and they're gonna have to go on the road in the playoffs against the 49ers most likely, and especially the way the defense is playing, like in this game, and how they played against Seattle. It's not good. It's not good. And the other thing too is matchups. Because some people say, "Oh, well, how come they were great against the Eagles, and the Eagles have a great offense?" It's a divisional opponent. It's that's the other thing too. It's how you match up against certain teams. The Cowboys match up well against the Eagles, but they don't match up well against the 49ers. And last night they did not match up well against the Bills. So, they're still going to be a playoff team. They're most likely going to be, if they don't win the division, they're going to be playing, whoever wins the NFC South. So they probably are going to win that game, and they'll be in the divisional round again. But now we got to see what you do after that, because, that's something they haven't been able to do, is get past that divisional round. At least since, I've been watching football, but, it's, and this hurts, Dak's MVP chances. It definitely does, because, he was playing great, and now it takes one game, and then all of a sudden things change, and Brock Purdy again has another great game. Christian McCaffrey, 3 more touchdowns yesterday. So that kind of hurts Dak's chances, because they just couldn't do anything. They couldn't do. I think after, I don't even remember how many passing yards he had after the first half. It was like he had maybe around 50 passing yards. I mean, he finished the game with like a little over 100. But and the Bills have a lot of injuries on defense. But that's what happens. On the road, it's a lot different. It's a lot different. So, I mean, we'll see what happens tonight, with the Eagles and the Seahawks, because, Cowboys technically had the lead over the Eagles in the division, but, after tonight, it could be different. And the Eagles have a softer finish to their schedule. They play the Giants twice, so that, the Tommy DeVito narrative is, I think, over now. After yesterday, Giants only put up 6 points. I talked about this. Last time the Giants won in Philly was 2013. And it's not going to happen this year. So, but back to this game. I mean, yeah, that was a rough game. Happy I was able to pick the Bills. And we'll see, how that shapes out if it comes down to them versus Miami in the last game of the season. As for the Cowboys, you play Miami next week, and then I know they play Washington in the year, and then what's their second to last game? Let's see, their second to last game, and I've gone over everybody's schedules like a bunch, and I still don't even know. They play. Oh, that's right. They play the Lions at home. The Lions look good on Saturday. So, we'll see what happens. And that's an offense that can put up points. So, next 2 games are going to be tough. Now, I mean, what benefits the Cowboys at least is, the game against the Lions is at home. So, and they're unbeatable at home, at least this year. So, I still don't trust the Lions defense, even though they played well on Saturday against the Broncos. But we'll see what happens. But this game kind of reminded us of the Cowboys and what they are. Again, still a very good team, a team with a loaded roster, but they might not go far in the playoffs. But it all depends on how the playoffs shape out. I mean, the Niners could somehow lose. Well, if they're the 1 seed, and the Cowboys are the 5, and the Cowboys win. I mean, odds are the Cowboys are going to be playing the Niners. So, but I mean, that's really the Cowboys' like best chance of, because the NFC is not that good. It just isn't. It's top heavy. You got the Niners, and then everybody else. Cowboys match up well against every other team in the NFC. The Niners, who are the best team in the NFC, they just don't match up well against them. They don't. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tough obstacle to get around if they can't avoid the 49ers. That's why winning the division would be, crucial for them, because at least there's a chance that maybe the Niners get upset and the Cowboys are hosting an NFC Championship game. But now you lose this game and the Eagles win out, now you're going to be a wild card team and going to have to probably play the 49ers again. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. What are your takeaways from it? But listen, the Bills, they let James Cook put them on their back, and he carried them to a win. And the defense played well also for the Bills. So they pick up a win. Right now, they're not, one of the wild card teams they're tied, but right now, teams have tiebreakers over them. But they looked good. They looked good yesterday. And Josh Allen really didn't have to do that much. So with that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about last night's game between the Ravens and the Jaguars. The Ravens clinching a playoff berth. So we'll get into that when we come back from our first break. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we're back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're now going to talk about the Ravens and their win last night against the Jaguars. So they clinched a playoff berth. They improved to 11-3 on the season. They won 23-7. I mean, this really was not a game. I mean, it was a game for a moment. And the Jags had their opportunities too. But they, costly mistakes. Trevor Lawrence fumbling. I mean, I don't even know how he fumbled. I mean, nobody touched him, and all of a sudden he's juggling the ball and he drops it, and the Ravens picked it up. And then, they're driving to, try to get some points at the end of the first half, and they're not able to get out of bounds, and they can't spike it first they connect on a big play to Zay Jones, set up first and goal, I believe. And then they throw a pass, and they don't get out of bounds, and then they can't clock it in time because they have no timeouts left, and they end up not getting any points, and they're losing 10-0 at the half. And their biggest play of the game was that big play to Jamal Agnew. That was for 65 yards. That was in the third quarter. So that made it 10-7, but they didn't score after that. That's the only time they scored. The Ravens scored 13 points in the fourth quarter, and they won 23-7. Lamar Jackson, he went 14-24, 171 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. He was sacked 3 times. The Ravens ran the ball for 251 yards. Gus Edwards had a rushing touchdown in this game. Lamar Jackson was their leading rusher. He had 97 yards on the game. Keaton Mitchell, who was making plays last night, he had 73 yards rushing, but unfortunately late in the game he suffered a knee injury, and that's not good. He had to get carted off. So I don't know what. Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now. It just says Keaton Mitchell likely out for the season, which is a big blow. Because he really was he was running the football well for them recently, and that hurts their running game. So it's going to be Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, who had 58 yards rushing, and Lamar Jackson obviously running the football as well. But yeah, it's common. I mean, my friend said it in our sports chat last night. I mean, these Ravens running backs are always getting hurt, and this is another one, unfortunately, because he was doing good for them. And then in the receiving game, Isaiah Likely, 5 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. He was their leading receiver. Rashad Bateman had 3 for 39. Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr., guys that had good games last week, they had a combined 2 catches for 21 yards. And I started Zay Flowers in one of my fantasy leagues, and he only got me like 2 points almost. I did also start Odell too. One of the leagues we won, it didn't really matter, but the other one did not win. I had to start him because I am missing Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill. So hopefully those guys come back because it's the playoffs now in that league, and going to need them. So, but yeah, that was interesting that Odell and Zay Flowers just they didn't do anything last night. But the Ravens defense played well. The Jags, again, just really could not get anything going on offense outside of the big play to Agnew. It looked like they had a touchdown to Calvin Ridley. They called it incomplete. Doug Peterson challenged it, and they had Terry McCauley, right? The ex-official on, their rules expert, and he's like, yeah, he looks like he's in, and then they ruled it incomplete. They still ruled it incomplete, and he was just like, that is not incomplete because Ridley bobbled it, and then he had possession of it, and it looked like one of his legs was still in. But they still ruled it incomplete. So they would have scored a touchdown, and that would have been big because if they got that in the 2-point conversion, then it's a 1-score game. But nope, that did not happen. And then Trevor Lawrence, in the Jags, their numbers. So he went 25 of 43, 264 yards passing, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. They only ran the ball for 75 yards. So Trevor Lawrence actually was their leading rusher. He had 41 yards rushing. Travis Etienne had 31 yards rushing. Jamal Agnew was their leading receiver, 2 receptions for 70 yards and a touchdown. Zay Jones had 5 for 59. He actually got hurt in this game, so he had to leave the game late. I think that happened in the second. Yeah, it happened late in the second half. Ridley had 5 for 39. Again, he could have had the touchdown. They didn't call it. But yeah, the Jags, they fall to 8-6, and now you got a three-way tie in the AFC South, which is not good for the Jags. Texans, they pulled off an upset against the Titans. Now, if the Titans were contending, I would be more upset. But still, I mean, how did the Titans blow that? There was no C.J. Stroud, no Nico Collins, no Tank Dell, and they were able to pull off the win with Case Keenum at quarterback, and they won in overtime. I can't pronounce his name. Kaimi Fairbairn, there we go. He kicked the game-winning field goal. They won in overtime, and now they're 8-6, and that's a big win for the Texans. And the Colts, they won on Saturday against the Steelers. So 3 teams are 8-6. So and now Trevor Lawrence actually is in concussion protocol. So that puts his status for next Sunday up in the air, because who knows what's going to happen now, and C.J. Beathard could be starting against the Bucs. So Jags could lose that game, and they could find themselves outside of the AFC playoff picture, which would be insane, because it looked like the Jags, especially after that win they had against the Texans a few weeks ago, that they were a lock, for the playoffs. And now, not just the division, the playoffs in general, yeah, it's in jeopardy right now. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, they did not look good, and they really hurt themselves last night. I mean, again, the turnovers, Trevor Lawrence fumbling, and just not being able to. The clock management, not being able to spike it in time to at least get some points. Well, also, I mean, Brandon McManus missed a couple field goals too. I mean, that didn't help. I forgot about that. It just was not a good game for the Jags, but a good game for the Ravens. And listen, they got a big game coming up against the Niners on Christmas, and that could be a Super Bowl preview. And I know people are talking about Lamar Jackson now as maybe being an MVP candidate, and yeah, I mean, he should be. This team is the best team right now in the AFC. Their defense is playing really well. Lamar's playing well. He's finally got weapons to work with, even though you really didn't see them that much last night. I'm talking about Zay Flowers. But again, that's me being salty for, losing in one of my fantasy leagues. But Ravens are a really good team. And it has a lot to do with Lamar Jackson being healthy. Because what has been the problem with the Ravens the last couple of seasons is Lamar Jackson not being able to stay healthy and getting hurt at this point in the season. Now, knock on wood that doesn't happen. But you look at, the other teams. I mean, they just beat the Jags. Listen, the Dolphins, they have an explosive offense, but the Ravens with a healthy team, I think they're the better team. And then you got Kansas City, who they got their struggles too. They did win yesterday, but right now the Ravens are kind of the better team than them. And, they're 11-3. So, yeah, I mean, right now the Ravens, they're in a good position. And they just got to keep it rolling. But obviously injuries continue to, affect them. I mean, again, Keaton Mitchell, he gets hurt last night. Ronnie Stanley, their tackle, he was banged up last night. He was in and out of the game. So, and that's a problem. But listen, as long as their quarterback's healthy, their defense is healthy, the Ravens are going to be fine. And we'll see how they perform in the playoffs. And we'll see how they perform next week, because next week, that's a big, big game for both teams. Because this could be possibly a Super Bowl preview between the Ravens and the 49ers. I did say this a couple weeks ago, or on one of the recent shows, that you got both teams from last year's Super Bowl playing against division rivals. But then the final game of the night, you got possibly, you got the 2-1 seeds, but you got possibly a Super Bowl preview right there. Niners and Ravens. Because right now, both of those teams are the best teams in their respective conferences. I mean, the Niners, you probably put them over the Ravens. But I think this is going to be a competitive game between both teams, because both teams have good defenses. Now, how is the Ravens defense going to match up against the 49ers playmakers? Again, we'll see what happens, next Monday. But so in the comments, any updates on Keaton? I can't find any, and usually it's the next day. But yeah, I think it'll be the Super Bowl rematch. Yeah, so I saw that it's likely a season-ending injury. So he's going to be out, unfortunately, because I happened to just look it up before. So it's probably an ACL. But again, it's unfortunate because he was running the football well. But again, it's been very common, Ravens and their injuries, and especially with their running backs. I mean, last year? No, 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you had Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and J.K. Dobbins all tear their ACLs, or all just had. Well, two of them had tore their ACLs. I think one of them was an Achilles injury, and they had to bring in Latavius Murray and Devontae Freeman and all these guys. I mean, last year too was a problem as well, but 2 years ago, I mean, they just had to bring back or sign guys off the streets, and this year, I mean, Dobbins gets hurt, he tears his Achilles, but you still got Gus Edwards, you still got Justice Hill, but again, Mitchell was making plays, and now he's gonna be out, so. But I don't think it's a major loss for them. I mean, I think they'll still be fine, but it definitely hurts them. I mean, obviously you still got Lamar Jackson who can run the football as well. But we will see. We will see. I mean, these are two teams going in different directions right now. I mean, the Jags, this is their third loss in a row now, because they lost last week against the Browns, who we're going to talk about shortly. And then the week before, they lose that brutal game to the Bengals where they should have won. I mean, Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt; they probably win that game. So now they got a crucial game against the Bucs coming up, and Trevor Lawrence might not be playing because he's in concussion protocol. So Jags are in trouble. They are in trouble. So when we get back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about. I referenced them. We'll talk about the Browns and their comeback win against the Bears. But before that, I just want to remind you guys, once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we're going to talk about the Browns, because I know a lot of people in the comments, have been talking about the Browns on some of my videos. So we'll get into that and what happened in that game. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns and their comeback win against the Chicago Bears yesterday. listen, the Bears defense has been playing better as of late. The Bears as a team have been playing better as of late. So this was going to be a tough game. I thought the Browns, though, because the Bears offense, it was good last week against the Lions, but I still don't trust it completely. So I figured the Browns were going to put up points, and the Bears weren't going to be able to, come back from that. But what ended up happening was the Bears, they capitalized off of Joe Flacco turnovers. So we'll go through the game summary. So in the first quarter, both teams just traded punts the entire quarter. Then Joe Flacco threw an interception, and deep in their own territory, so that set up the Bears' first touchdown. Justin Fields connected with Cole Kmet for a 5-yard touchdown, so that put them up 7-0. Then the Browns answered. They went 12 plays, 84 yards, 7 minutes of time of possession. They went down the field, and Flacco connected with David Njoku for a 2-yard touchdown. Him and Njoku have developed a nice rapport. So that tied the game at 7. Both teams punted. Then Justin Fields threw a pick. So the Browns, and that was to end the the first half. Actually, I think that was that just a Hail Mary, I guess? Yeah, so I guess that was just the Hail Mary to end the first half, because there's a Hail Mary later in the game, at the end of the game that we'll get into. So then the Bears punted to open up the second half, and then Flacco threw a pick 6. That was to Edmonds, so that was a big play there. So that put the Bears up 14-7. Browns punted, then the Bears kicked a field goal, put them up 17-7. Cairo Santos from 41 yards out kicked a field goal. So then both teams punted. Browns punted, Bears punted, Browns punted again, and then Flacco threw another pick that was intended for David Njoku. Bears then turned it over on downs. Then in the fourth quarter, the Browns kicked a field goal. They went 6 plays, 52 yards, 2 minutes, 29 seconds in time of possession. So that made it 17-10. Dustin Hopkins connected for a 33-yard field goal. Then both teams punted again. Bears punted, Browns punted, Bears punted again. And then Browns went 6 plays, 80 yards, 2 minutes, 10 seconds in time of possession. Joe Flacco connected with Amari Cooper for a 51-yard touchdown. And that was a great throw by Flacco, threading the needle there. And Amari Cooper tiptoed down the side. Well, he didn't really tiptoe, but he went down the sideline, scored the touchdown, and that tied the game. Bears then punted, and then the Browns got into field goal range. They kicked the field goal. Flacco opened up the drive with a 31-yard pass to David Njoku. Then another 34-yard pass, 30-plus yard pass. Flacco connected with Njoku. And yeah, Dustin Hopkins, 34-yard field goal. That put them up 20-17. And then the Bears, they went for the Hail Mary at the end of the game. Got intercepted, but Darnell Mooney had a chance to catch the ball. Fields threw it up and got batted up in the air. Mooney fell to the ground, and the ball hit him. It was in his lap, and he just couldn't corral it, and he juggled it, and it ended up getting picked off. And the Bears lose a tough one, because that would have been that would have got them back into more so back into the conversation of, hey, maybe they can sneak into the playoffs somehow. But they lose a tough game there. And the Browns get the win, comeback win. Joe Flacco, a tale of 2 halves, really. But he went 28-44, 374 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the day. One of them, obviously, was the pick 6. DTR actually threw a pass at one point in this game. And I think it was because the Browns, I think, went for it on 4th down at one point. So I thought, because Flacco was throwing picks that, that they were going to make a QB change. But that wasn't the case. Browns only ran the ball for 29 yards. Amari Cooper and David Njoku had good games. Amari Cooper had 4 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown, and Njoku had 10 receptions for 104 yards and a touchdown. Marquise Goodwin had 1 catch for 57 yards. But yeah, Browns pick up a huge win. They're 9-5. I mean, they're in the driver's seat for one of those AFC wildcard spots. But also just something I wanted to touch upon. So in the comments last week on one of the videos, somebody thought I was calling the Browns frauds. So what I do is when I repost, so obviously you have the full stream, right? Which is the full hour. But then I'll post each segment of the show. So that way, you don't have to like skip around in the stream to find, the segment you want to watch. I mean, you can do that, but you also have like the videos that are the stream just broken up into the 4 parts. So someone thought I was calling the Browns frauds because one of the episodes last week was titled, teams that are fraudulent. And that's just the title of the episode, because one of the segments that I did was talking about teams that are frauds. But in that episode, I talked about the Browns and, them winning last week. And somebody thought I was calling the Browns frauds. I was not calling the Browns frauds. It's just that Browns segment is within the show. So the episode of the show is called Teams That Are Frauds, but it's not, I'm not calling the Browns frauds. It's just there's a segment, geared towards the Browns within the episode. That has nothing to do with the Browns being frauds. But that's just the title of the episode, because the main topic of that show was, talking about teams that are considered frauds, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, because I'm not very good at explaining things, but I am by no means calling the Browns frauds. I do not believe they are frauds. However, from this game, impressive win. This is a good team, but they do have their limitations. Because with Flacco, pocket passer, and the turnovers were an issue, because they could have lost that game, but Flacco made up for it, and he is their best chance to win games moving forward. He's got the big arm. I mean, the one pass that Marquise Goodwin caught, I mean, that was a bomb thrown by Flacco. Flacco's still got that big arm, and he's in a good situation. And with the Jets last year, he was not in a good situation. Talking with people yesterday that I was with, it just looked like he belonged on his couch. Now he gets off his couch and he's winning games for the Browns as they're trying to push their way into the playoffs. He's their best chance to win moving forward. Now, the turnovers are an issue, and they were going up against a good defense. The Bears' defense has been playing a lot better recently, so you got to give them credit. I knew it was going to be a tough game, but I thought, the Browns, as long as they didn't turn the ball over, which they did, they'd win comfortably, but that just, that wasn't the case. Flacco throwing 3 picks. But you know what? They still won the game, even with Flacco throwing 3 picks. And he almost threw for 400 yards. So, you still got to ride it with Flacco. I honestly thought he got benched because I saw DTR completed a pass for 5 yards. I thought, I'm like, they took Flacco out of the game. He must have had a really short leash then. But no, I'm not calling the Browns frauds. Now, I don't know if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, but they have the team. They have the team to do it. They do. And Joe Flacco is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, although it was many years ago, back when I was in middle school. Not the same player, but you know what? He's in a good situation right now. They got good weapons. You'd like to see them run the football a little bit better, but they were trailing, for most of the game. So you understand that. But you know what? That was a big win. They came back, despite, again, Flacco throwing 3 interceptions, and they're in a good spot right now. They're 9-5. I mean, they're not going to catch the Ravens for the division, but this should be the top wildcard team. And nobody's going to want to face them. That's another team. In the first segment, talking about the Bills, I mean, I didn't say it, but nobody's going to want to play the Bills if they get in as like a 6 or a 7 seed. Especially if you're the Chiefs and you got the 2 seed. The Bills are the 7 seed. I mean, you're not going to want that. But the Browns, too. Again, you got a quarterback that has playoff experience, and is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They got a good defense, good running game. I mean, yeah, it's a team that you're not going to want to face. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know how far they're going to go with Flacco. They might win a playoff game, but we'll just have to see. But it really is remarkable what he's been able to do for them. The first game lost to the Rams, but that game was close. They could have won that game. It got away from them at the end, but they could have won that game. But, you beat the Jags, who are the leaders in the AFC South, and then you come back against the Bears, who, have been playing better football as of late. Their defense, gave them problems yesterday. They were able to get the win there. So, now we'll see what they do next week. I know they don't play the Jets next week. Who's the team they play against? They go up against the Texans next week. So if CJ Stroud doesn't play in that game, I mean, you got a shot to win that. That game's going to be tough if Stroud is playing because the Texans do put up points at home. But Browns are in a very good spot right now. So, they just got to continue to, obviously not turn the ball over, but play good defense, run the football. Flacco plays mistake-free. I mean, it's easier said than done, but, this team is going to make the playoffs. And they're going to be tough to beat. It's just, again, knock on them is, listen, Flacco's, from the previous era of pocket passers, so yeah, you're limited there. But he's got that big arm, and, helped him out yesterday because he made some really good throws. Had some bad ones, but also had some really good ones too. So, and they won. And they're lucky Mooney didn't catch that because that would have been a heartbreaking loss for the Browns. But I just want to say the Browns are not frauds. I never said that. But the other thing too is, where in the video did I say that they were frauds? If I didn't in that segment. I was in that segment. I was saying they're doing great. I mean, this is, the Flacco story is great. I never said anything about them being frauds, but I understand that there might be. I understand where the confusion was, but again, the title of whenever I repost the shows into the 4 segments, it's the title of the episode with the segment after that. But that does not mean that the title of the episode means that has to do with the segment. It's just the title of the episode. Because obviously I can't title it, all 4 segments. That's why I title it, as from one of the segments of the show. And the main topic of the show that day was teams that are fraudulent. But the segment, I didn't talk about the Browns. I talked about the Dolphins and the Lions. But the Browns, and it's funny because, we'll see if the Dolphins and the Browns end up playing each other because that's possible. It's possible down the road. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it with this topic. Let me know what you guys think. About the Browns' performance yesterday. It was ugly in the beginning, but they were able to, pull out the win. And got 3 games left, and let's see what ends up happening. Because, I think they're making the playoffs, but now it just depends on where they're going to be in terms of seeding when it comes to the wild card. Because the Ravens pretty much, I think, have the division locked up. So. But you got the Niners next week. You got the Dolphins after that. Steelers. They should beat the Steelers, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, Browns, they are going to be a wild card team. So, so with that, we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to preview tonight's big NFC matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we're back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to talk about tonight's big NFC matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks. So there's some injury news. Well, not really injury news. Well, actually, yes. Yes and no. Because Jalen Hurts is questionable for this game, dealing with an illness. So his status is kind of up in the air for this game. I know last time I checked it said he was questionable, so I'm just going to see if there's any updates here on that. So this is it says Jalen Hurts downgraded after illness worsens, but that's from 23 hours ago. Still says he's questionable, so we'll see. But it says illness worsens, so who knows? So he might not. It says he was the non-participant in Saturday's practice, so that is not good. That is not good. Because now, and it doesn't look like Geno Smith is going to play it. So I saw it said it's going to be an uphill battle for him to start tonight. So we might be seeing Marcus Mariota versus Drew Lock. So that'll be fun. But this is a big game for both teams. Both teams are on losing streaks right now. Both teams lost to the Cowboys and the 49ers. Unfortunately for the Seahawks, at least for the Eagles, they played the 49ers once. The Seahawks had to play them twice in a span of 3 weeks. So the Seahawks are trying to get back on the right track. But it's, hasn't been good recently. With Geno Smith, now him dealing with his groin injury. Jalen Hurts dealing with an illness. So, we'll see what happens. But, this is gonna be an interesting game. And also, so the Eagles, they made Matt Patricia now their new defensive coordinator. So we'll see if that changes anything. But Darius Slay's not playing in this game tonight. He was ruled out. So the Eagles secondary, which hasn't been great, is taking even more hits. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But yeah, so Zach Cunningham, he's out, one of their linebackers. Jalen Hurts didn't practice. Darius Slay's out with a knee injury. Geno Smith, so he practiced in a limited fashion on Friday, but who knows if he's going to play. Witherspoon, their rookie, did not practice on Saturday, so he's questionable for this game. So both teams are dealing with injuries here, and you look at the league rankings for both of these teams. So the Eagles are 15th in passing yards per game. The Seahawks are 13th in passing yards per game. The Eagles are 9th in rushing yards per game. The Seahawks are 28th. The Eagles are 7th in points per game, and the Seahawks are 18th. And then defensively, Eagles are 30th against the pass. Seahawks are 26th. In rushing yards, when it comes to stopping the run, the Eagles are 7th. And the Seahawks are 23rd. And then points allowed, Eagles are 28th. Seahawks are 25th. This game is in Seattle, so that does help the Seahawks out a lot. But yeah, this team, both teams are struggling. The Seahawks at one point, they were riding high. They were looking good, and then they lost to the Rams, they lost to the Niners, the Cowboys, and then the Niners again. So yeah, they're on a 4-game losing streak. That win against the Commanders was in mid-November. And that seems like a long time ago, because since then they're 6-7 now, and they're on the outside looking in of the playoff picture. They really fell off, and they're a half game behind the Vikings, the Rams, and the Saints for those wild card spots. So they need this win tonight. Well, both teams need this win tonight, because the Eagles right now they're a half game up on the Cowboys. In the NFC East, but they lose this game and it's going to go right back to the Cowboys for having the lead in the division. So, and now both teams are going to be possibly without their starting quarterback. So it's not good. It's not good. So, we'll see what happens there. But I have the Eagles winning. We'll see what happens. I have the Eagles winning. I did take the Seahawks with the 3.5 just because. Well, first of all, I actually didn't know if if Geno was going to play or not, but now it seems like he's not going to. If it's saying it's going to be an uphill battle for him to start. But I mean, the Seahawks, they're at least at home, and Eagles. I mean, the Eagles' defense has not been good. Now, if they're able to put pressure on Drew Lock or whoever's, playing quarterback, then it's going to be a long night for whoever's playing quarterback. But if Drew Lock or Geno Smith, if they got time to throw, I mean, listen, you got Metcalf, you got Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba's been making plays in recent weeks. You got Kenneth Walker back. This offense has a lot of weapons. A lot of weapons on this team. So if they're able to have time and find the open man, it's going to be a tough night for the Eagles. And again, it's in Seattle. It's not an easy place to play. Now, the Niners made it easy on Thanksgiving, but that's because they're the 49ers. So we'll see what happens. If Mariota's got to come in and start, I mean, listen, Mariota's started plenty of games in the NFL. Obviously not the quarterback that a lot of people thought he was going to be when he, first got drafted. He's kind of bounced around a little bit. He was with the Falcons last year. Now he's with the Eagles. So we'll just have to see. And was he with another team before that too? I'm trying to remember. Because I know he was with the Titans, obviously, but was he with another team? I feel like he was. I could be wrong though. Let's see. Oh, that's right. He was with the Raiders. I forgot about that. Yeah. So yeah, he's kind of bounced around a little bit. So I mean, we just got to see. But if Jalen Hurts is not practicing, I mean, that's not good. I mean, we saw what happens with Mahomes when he was dealing with the flu, and how they played against the Broncos. So like, I don't know, but it's gonna be tough if he has to miss time, especially because it's a game. Well, at least miss this game because this game's on the road, and the Eagles they are on a 2-game losing streak, so. And I apologize for the barking. But we'll have to see what happens. This game actually got flexed into Monday night. I don't know what the original game was supposed to be for this week. But yeah, so this game got flexed into Monday night. It's not a bad game. Except we might see two backup quarterbacks playing tonight. Guys that. I mean, at least like these guys once were starters. Mariota was longer than Drew Lock, but again, it's just going to be another one of those weeks with a backup quarterback. So, but it's a bit. But again, it's a big game. It's a big game. So just hope for a big game, and then we're on our way to week number 16. In the NFL next week, it's season is almost over, and then we're in the playoffs. So, I mean, these wild cards are just insane with the amount of you got 6 and 7 teams, 7 and 6 teams. I mean, it's wild. I mean, going into this week, I saw a post. It was like 30 of the 32 teams are still like technically alive for the playoffs. I mean, now that number's kind of dropped. There's now a lot of teams that got knocked out after this week, but that's just crazy. The amount of teams that are still in it, and we're in December now. But that's what that 7 seed does, So, that's why all these teams are still in it. So, I mean, we just got to keep our eyes out for any reports on if Hurts is playing or not. Actually, let me see if I could see on because I just looked up on Safari, so let's see if anything on the fantasy apps. Well, I see that Marcus Mariota is trending up. Doesn't say anything on him. So let's see with Hurts. So with Hurts, under his player profile, it just says officially questionable. But yeah, he wasn't able to practice on Saturday. Again, it says the illness worsened overnight. So he traveled separately from the team. Yeah, so we'll see. And then as for Geno Smith, like I said, I know last time I checked it said uphill battle. Yeah, so 2 hours ago it says unlikely to play on Monday night. So yeah, then it's gonna be Drew Lock that's gonna start tonight. So I mean, at times he didn't look terrible against the Niners, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, listen, Seahawks have a lot of weapons. So, they got a shot, especially if Hurts is out. But, both teams are desperate for a win. So I honestly don't know who's. I mean, if Hurts plays, I'd probably still pick the Eagles to win. Eagles probably win, but it's gonna be a really close game. It is gonna be well, I shouldn't say it's gonna be a really close game, but I think it's gonna be a close game. Just as long as the Seahawks are, if Drew Lock has time to throw, and doesn't turn the ball over, then I think that this game could be close. But if the Eagles are able to put pressure on them, then I don't know how the Seahawks win this game. But I mean, listen, people have had their way with the Eagles secondary this year, and the Seahawks are at home, so they should be able to exploit the Eagles secondary. And there's no Darius Slay tonight either, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. So let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think's gonna win? But that's pretty much it with the show for today. We'll see what happens with this game tonight. Obviously, Week 15 after tonight is over, and then we get into fantasy playoffs have already started. I already got knocked out in 2 leagues. We'll see what happens next week with the other leagues that I made the playoffs in. Did get a big win this week, most likely, unless Devontae Smith, Tyler Lockett, and Jake Elliott all drop 50 points. So we're in good shape. So hopefully, I get my guys back next week. Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, please be healthy next week. I saw that there articles that they should shut down Keenan Allen for the rest of the year, which I understand, but for me, please don't do that, please. So we'll see what happens there. But with that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you guys for watching. Try to have the show up into the broken down segments by tomorrow the latest, because we were seeing if we could we're trying to figure out how to get the show earlier without having to wait till YouTube's able to let us download it, but we'll figure it out. So until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC football podcast. Almost said fantasy football podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.